Number 10. The vampire fish. The vampire fish is without a doubt one of the most horrifying creatures not only in the Amazon rainforest, but also in the entire world, or at least in the rivers of the world. This massive fish, properly known as a payara, makes its home in the Amazon basin. And yes, it has vampire teeth that are large enough and sharp enough to seriously do some damage to someone. If, for some ridiculous reason, one of these vampire fish managed to bite you in the neck, you probably wouldn't make it out of the water alive. Even a bite to your wrist or abdomen could prove fatal. The payara can grow to be 35 pounds and 3 feet long. It has powerful jagged jaws and 2 main teeth that stick out from its lower jaw, which it uses to basically spear its prey. But it has more teeth than that. There are a few smaller fangs in its face that it can use for impaling smaller fish, like Amazon tetras. And if you think any of the photographs you see online of the massive vampire fish are exaggerated, it turns out that their fangs can actually grow to be upwards of 6 inches in length. The photos you've seen are definitely real. Number 9. Killer fungi. One of the freakiest creatures in the Amazon is not a creature at all, but a fungus. This may sound like the plot from a poorly budgeted horror movie, but there is actually a fungus in the Amazon jungle that can turn an insect into a zombie before it kills them. According to a report from the Daily Mail, this is a real parasite that is destroying colonies of ants in the South American rainforest. The fungus works by latching onto a carpenter ant while it scurries across the forest floor. The fungus then grows inside of the ant, consuming its entire body, draining nutrients and releasing mind control chemicals that alter its behavior. If you've ever seen the movie The Happening with Mark Wahlberg, it's kind of the same idea, but with insects and fungus. Scary! So, what does this parasitic zombie fungus do? It forces the ant to move around in as many areas as possible. The ant will find fresh leaves, it might climb up a tree and then jump off onto the leaves close to the ground, all in an attempt to spread the parasitic fungus as much as possible. The ant is basically a zombie whose only purpose is to infect the entire jungle. After the ant runs around trying to infect everything, the fungus will then force it to cripple itself, eventually resulting in its death. The spores of the fungus then bloom from the ant's head after it dies. Yeah, that is extremely terrifying, and hopefully no mad scientists try to take the fungus to other places in the world, only for it to leak and spread and cause a real-life zombie apocalypse. Number 8. Coral snake. There are lots of scary snakes in the Amazon jungle. Pretty much everywhere you look, there is a snake hidden somewhere in the dense green. And while the anaconda is certainly the biggest and most intimidating, there are actually 9 species of coral snake located throughout Peru and much of the Amazon rainforest that are deadly, awful to look at, and absolutely horrifying. Coral snakes are very distinct. They are yellow, red, and black. They are clearly extremely venomous just by looking at them. Their venom is some of the strongest in the world. A single bite from a coral snake can kill a human in just a few minutes. These snakes can weigh up to 5 pounds and grow to be 3 feet in length. Coral snakes typically eat birds, lizards, and frogs, but they have been known to cannibalize other snakes. And as a side note, it's important to know that when it comes to the red, yellow, and black color scheme, if red touches yellow, the snake is deadly. However, if black touches red, the snake is not deadly. This is always a good thing to know when wandering into the jungle. There is a rhyme that goes, red and yellow can kill a fellow. Red and black, friend of Jack. Number 7. Harpy eagles. Harpy eagles are some of the most violent looking birds on the planet. The eagles of North America are majestic, and they are certainly deadly, but at least they don't look at all that horrifying. The harpy eagle looks like it's always plotting a gruesome murder. These are the most terrifying birds in the Amazon. They occupy massive territories and feed primarily on medium-sized mammals and other birds. It's the largest raptor in the jungle, and one of the biggest eagles on the planet. But despite the harpy eagle's large numbers, they can be difficult to spot. You'll probably never see one, even if you lived in the jungle your whole life. In terms of just how deadly these birds are, they share the very top of the food chain with the 2 other apex predators of the Amazon, the jaguar and the anaconda. The jaguar is the king of the forest floor, the anaconda is the ruler of the swamps, and the harpy eagle dominates the entire canopy of the Amazon rainforest. Their favorite meals consist of sloths and monkeys. Number 6. Giant fishing spider. Sure, there are plenty of venomous and scary spiders in the Amazon. There's the Goliath bird eater, which is exactly what it sounds like. There's a spider the size of a dog, and there are countless tarantulas. But one of the most overlooked arachnids is the giant fishing spider, which is horrifying in its own way. The spider is huge, growing to be around 1.5 to 4 centimeters, and they eat a diet primarily of fish and other swampy amphibians. You can find these 8-legged freaks waiting by the side of rivers and streams to pounce on unsuspecting prey. They are even able to coat themselves in an air bubble and dive underwater to ambush off-guard fish. The giant fishing spider is able to dive under the water and swim for several minutes at a time until it finds a fish and feels like eating. Imagine going for a dip and coming out with a huge, hairy spider stuck to your chest, and it's holding onto a small fish with its massive fangs. This is a disturbing picture, and not something you want happening. Number 5. The giant leech. Another aquatic freak show of the Amazon jungle is the giant Amazonian leech. Scientists believe it is the largest freshwater leech in the world. It can grow to be almost 20 inches in length with an astounding width of almost 4 inches. That means the leech can be half as long as your arm. They live inside the Amazon River, all the way from Venezuela to the Guianas. And while most people think leeches just hang around in the water waiting to eat people, their main diet consists of caimans, massive anacondas, capybaras, and even cows. Leeches are excellent swimmers and will hang out under rocks in the water while they digest whatever meal they ate. They have no problem sucking onto any life form silly enough to get in the water, including you. If you thought getting out of the water with the fishing spider on you was bad, how loud would you scream if this giant leech was on you and sucking your blood? Number 4. Red-bellied piranha. As we recently learned from the last 2 numbers, there are plenty of things in the waters of the Amazon to be scared of. But even before someone arrives in the Amazon jungle, chances are they're already scared of the red-bellied piranha. These fish have one of the most notorious reputations of any animal in the world. But did you know that piranhas are actually important scavengers and a critical part of the Amazon ecosystem? According to the National Zoo, a huge part of their diet consists of fins which they nibble off the larger fish. A typical red-bellied piranha can weigh about 4 pounds and grow to be over 1 foot long, and they travel in large schools. But it's nothing like what you see in the movies. You'll never actually see 500 piranhas devouring a cow in a mad feeding frenzy within just 30 seconds. Usually, there are no more than 20 individual piranhas in a school. They are still vicious predators and they will bite you, but there's absolutely no chance that a small school of 20 piranhas can literally rip the skin from your bones as if you were thrown into a blender. You definitely don't want to be attacked by one, but they aren't quite as horrifying as everyone thinks. Number 3. Lancehead pit viper. Pit vipers are not friendly. These are snakes that you should 100% be terrified of. They are what nightmares are made of. And while I could go on and on about how the Amazonian lancehead pit viper has venom poisonous enough to kill a person in minutes, let's talk instead about the deadly Snake Island in Brazil, where hordes of lancehead pit vipers have caused the island to be blocked off from any human contact. It's known as Snake Island, and it's located 90 miles from Sao Paulo. According to just about every news source across the world, it is the deadliest island on the planet, and it earns the title because it has the highest concentration of venomous snakes anywhere in the world. On this island, there is an insane amount of golden lancehead vipers, which are one of the most venomous vipers on the planet. But what's crazy about the island of the snakes is that the lancehead vipers that live here are said to have 3 to 5 times stronger venom than those that live on the mainland in the jungle. A single bite can melt human flesh and leads to death within the hour. There are about 4,000 of these snakes on the island, and it's the only place in the world where golden lancehead vipers are found. But of course, there are still normal lancehead vipers on the mainland. Number 2. Feral pigs. These aren't your normal cute little piggies. Feral pigs are dangerous and should be considered scary by everyone. What's really interesting about feral pigs, also known as javelinas or peccary, is that they live all the way from Arizona to the jungles of the Amazon. You can find them in the jungle, you can find them in Texas, and you can find them all throughout Central America as well. And even though these are a type of pig, they don't look or behave like the pigs you might be thinking of. A perfect example of this is when a man and his dog were attacked by a pack of feral pigs in Arizona. It happened at the top of a mountain, and according to the Phoenix Fire Department, the hiker was forced to call 911 after the feral pigs came out of nowhere and basically tried to eat the man and his dog for breakfast. Sounds more like a pack of hungry wolves than pigs. And even though these feral monsters can be found in Arizona, they do stem from South America. They have very slowly made their way north and are now prevalent throughout most of the Americas. Fun fact, these feral pigs are most closely related to hippopotamuses. Number 1. Vampire bats and disease. The scariest animal by far in the Amazon is the vampire bat. Not only because these bats turn into actual vampires and suck people's blood at night, but because under the right circumstances, vampire bats from the Amazon, specifically from Brazil, could unleash extremely deadly diseases across the globe. A new study has shown that feral pigs, the kind we just spoke about in the last story, have increased in population 5 times since 2007. The population explosion of the pigs has led to a population explosion of vampire bats. More blood to drink, more bats to drink it. This has pushed the possibility of a new infectious disease being born through the vampire bats to a staggering level. This study was published in the journal Frontiers in Ecology and the Environment, and it's a harsh warning. With an exponentially increasing population of vampire bats, the most disease-ridden animals on the planet, there's more possibility that they spread disease to livestock, humans, and even the globe. Number 10. Psamothua exigua. Psamothua exigua, or C. exigua for short. This little critter is literally one of the most terrifying things that reside in our oceans. You may have thought the thumbnail for this video was of a strange fish with teeth in its face, but if you look closely, you will see that the teeth are not teeth at all. The fish actually has its tongue replaced by a terrifying parasite we like to call C. exigua. This parasite works by literally replacing the tongue of whichever fish it infects and then stealing the fish's food. This is the only known parasite currently on our planet that literally replaces the organ of an animal. What's really fascinating is that not only does the organism replace the tongue with its own body, but it then becomes a fully functioning tongue that the fish can use. The fish doesn't even understand what's going on. Sure, the fish gains a tiny bit of weight, but it hardly even notices the parasite living in its mouth. Yikes! To be specific, C. exigua is a type of parasitic isopod. It enters the fish through its gills. Then the parasite uses its claws to cut off the blood supply to the fish's tongue. The lack of circulation will eventually force the tongue to atrophy and fall off on its own. The unfortunate fish is then left with no tongue in its mouth. The parasite replaces the missing tongue, and it then enjoys its new home inside the mouth of the fish, eating whatever food the fish catches. It's actually a pretty decent life for a malicious parasite. Number 9. Johnson's sea cucumber. The Johnson's sea cucumber is certainly one of the creepiest animals in the depths of the big blue. It's difficult to really say what it looks like, other than a bright red sea worm with creepy white spikes growing off of it. It looks like a poisonous underwater caterpillar, but don't let the photos fool you. These creepy crawlies can grow to be around 1.5 feet long, much larger than any caterpillar, and they live in the deepest parts of the ocean abyss. Unlike some other sea cucumbers, swimming for this Johnson is limited. It actually uses its tiny tube feet to move along the dusty floor of the ocean, and the way it eats is rather fascinating. Little bits of fallen food will stick to it as it crawls through the dirt, and then it uses its weird tentacles to stuff all that extra food into its mouth. It's basically a slug vacuum cleaner that moves slowly across the floor of the ocean, picking debris out of the world's deepest and wettest carpet. Number 8. The Spaghetti Monster. You have probably heard of the Spaghetti Monster by now. There are hundreds of interesting people who belong to the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster all across the world, many of them taking their driver's license photos with colanders on their heads. Members of the Church of the Spaghetti Monster can even be ordained to perform wedding ceremonies. And back in 2015, Live Science reported that the actual spaghetti monster was found floating across the surface of the ocean floor. There is no mistaking this beast for anything other than an upside-down bowl of spaghetti that has somehow gained intelligence and is now on the prowl in the deepest part of the ocean. But sorry to disappoint you, it's not actually a monster built from spaghetti. That would be cool though. The jellyfish-like creature was discovered swimming off the coast of Angola, videotaped by workers from an oil company about 4,000 feet deep. The creature was eventually identified as a siphonophore, closely related to jellyfish but totally unique. Siphonophores are colonial animals, meaning they are composed of many different multicellular organisms that work together in a giant colony that looks like one mass of spaghetti noodles. I wouldn't try eating one though. Number 7. Supergiant amphipods. Amphipods are already gross. Supergiant amphipods are even worse. Normal amphipods are just a fraction of an inch long. They are tiny crustaceans that live in the ocean and go about their business in peace. But the supergiant amphipods that were recently discovered north of New Zealand are absolutely enormous, nearly 10 times bigger than their tiny counterparts. And they are super nasty. They look like the ugliest shrimp that has ever been pulled from the ocean. But where they were discovered is really fascinating. Scientists on an expedition pulled 7 of these pale and leggy ocean insects out of the Kermadec Trench, making them the deepest and largest specimens ever found. Very little is known about these huge crustaceans. Supergiant amphipods were first discovered off the coast of Hawaii over 100 years ago. So far as researchers understand, they are husky scavengers that live at the bottom of the ocean, feasting on dead carcasses. It's unclear why there are some amphipods that are just shy of an inch long and the super giant breeds that are 11 inches long. It's creepy and bizarre. Number 6. The crimson jellyfish. The crimson jellyfish is by far one of the weirdest and disturbing jellyfish that lives at the depths of our oceans. It's also known as the Atolla jellyfish, and it's an extraordinary creature that has inhabited our planet for at least 500 million years. This jellyfish has no digestive system, no respiratory system, and no circulatory system. It doesn't even have a brain. It just kind of squiggles around and does what jellyfish do best, creep people out. But why is the crimson jellyfish on this list of creepiest animals that live in the deep? Probably because of its peculiar and spooky red colour. It also lives incredibly deep in the midnight zone of the ocean, nearly 10,000 feet down. There is no sunlight in this area of the ocean. And just wait until you hear about what this jellyfish does when it's threatened. In the absolute blackness of the midnight depths, the jellyfish is able to output a series of bioluminescent blue flares to scare off predators. It basically turns into the blaring red and blue light on top of a police car when something is trying to eat it. Pretty amazing considering it doesn't even have a brain. Number 5. Armored Sea Robin. Number 5 on the list is the Armored Sea Robin, which kind of looks like a demon spawn. It also looks like it could bite your foot off if you happened to step in front of its face. Luckily, these bizarre sea robins live very deep in the ocean, at around 1,000 feet, and they spend their days crawling along the sandy sea floor eating whatever comes their way. Luckily, these bizarre sea robins live very deep in the ocean. If you think the armored sea robin looks freaky underwater, you should see it on dry land. Its ghoulish red skin and massive white eyes make it look like it just hatched from an alien cocoon. They use their weird pectoral fins to crawl along the ocean floor, and they have something known as bony scutes all over their bodies that acts as a type of primitive armor. On the underside, close to the mouth, they have a pair of barbels for sniffing out unsuspecting prey. These things are often quite long and elaborate, like the roots of a plant, or a bit of a nerve cord waving around in the sea. While not dangerous to humans in the slightest, the armored sea robin is still a creepy deep-sea animal that I'd rather not have staring at me from my dinner plate. Number 4. Emperor Shrimp. You might say that every shrimp is nightmarish. The next time you take a shrimp ring out of your freezer, just take a look at the weird pink things on your plate. You're basically eating underwater beetles, only weirder. But if I had to choose one weird deep-sea shrimp, it would definitely be the Emperor Shrimp. It's a tiny odd critter, only about 3/4 of an inch in length. But what makes it really unusual is that it's a symbiotic animal. This means that the Emperor usually develops a relationship with another creature, such as a sea cucumber, to increase its chances of survival. The shrimp will then live on the animal, thereby being protected by predators, and it will feast on any parasites that try to take root on the host animal. It's a win-win situation. The shrimp literally spends its life running up and down whichever animal it's occupying, constantly foraging for food on its flesh. Plus, it kind of looks like a wet salamander with too many legs. There are lots of people who keep emperor shrimps as pets in a reef or home aquarium. I think I'll just stick to having dogs, thank you. Number 3. The coffin fish. Most people would say that this fish definitely belongs on this list of creepy ocean dwellers, but there are some who find it sort of cute. Which one are you? The coffin fish belong to a group of deep-sea anglerfishes, like the one in Finding Nemo. They come in several different forms, including the furry coffin fish, the pencil coffin fish, and the red shoe coffin fish. The red shoe looks significantly freakish, with its dreadful red eyes, flesh-coloured skin, and horseshoe-shaped head. Most species of coffin fish live pretty deep underwater, at least 6,000 feet below the surface, though some have been found in much shallower waters. They don't grow to be that big, only about 20 centimeters or so. Coffin fish use sensory canals within the prominence line on their head and back to detect movement of any fish nearby. These are ambush predators, who mostly feed on other fishes and crustaceans. They sit and wait patiently, using the nifty fishing rod that grows out of their heads to lure unfortunate fish close to their mouths. When they're not using their lure, they can fold it into a small pit located between their eyes, kind of like putting the broom back in the closet. Coffin fish can be found all around the world on the muddy and rocky ocean floors. Even more strange is that the coffin fish doesn't really swim. It mostly flounders over the sea floor using its stubby arms like broken canoe paddles. There are about 10 species of coffin fish, and each one is creepier than the last. Number 2. The eyeless dolphin. Dolphins are some of the friendliest animals in the ocean. But what about an eyeless dolphin? Nothing is more shocking or even disturbing than the eyeless dolphin that washed up on a Mexican beach. According to the report from The Sun, fishermen who discovered this nightmare creature couldn't even identify it. They claimed it probably came from an extreme depth near the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. The stranded creature looked like a mix between a dolphin and an eel. It had no flippers, no eyes, and a mouth packed with needle teeth. It also had a tail reminiscent of a moray eel. Nobody has seen one of these creatures before, and nobody has seen one since. Are there more of them? Or is this just a poor mutated dolphin? And would it have been as friendly as other dolphins? Scientists don't know what to call it. Some people don't even know if it's real. And you definitely don't want to encounter one of these on your next beach trip to Mexico. Number 1. Translucent sea salp. The translucent sea salp looks like a jellyfish that took on the form of an actual fish. It's a totally weird creature that was discovered off the coast of New Zealand by a fisherman. According to the guy who brought the translucent sea salp onto his boat, it felt like jelly and there was nothing to see inside of it in the way of organs except for a small orange blob near what might have been its tail. Suffice to say, the fisherman had no idea what to think. It wasn't until scientists saw the photos that they identified this creepy deep-sea animal. It's known as a salp, and according to the National Marine Aquarium Director, they are found in extremely cold seas, mostly in the Southern Ocean. They move by filtering water through their jelly bodies, and they feed on plankton and other tiny pieces of organic matter. In reality, salps are just another form of strange life that scientists don't know everything about. There are many creepy things floating around in the dark depths of our world, and the translucent sea salp is the perfect example of just how weird, unnatural, and slimy things can get. Number 10. The Striga. Out of all the mythical creatures hidden in the wild, there is nothing quite as frightening as the Striga. This monster is a female demon from Slavic mythology that's a weird mashup between an owl and a vampire. It looks horrifying with its owl face and giant wings, and it is believed to have gotten its origins when a human was born with 2 souls and became a Striga after death. In fact, anyone can become one of these beasts if they are born with 2 hearts. This obviously doesn't happen in real life, but it's definitely a thing in Slavic mythology. The Striga is considered one of the deadliest and most feared creatures in all of Polish folklore. As an owl-human hybrid, they spend most of their time seeking revenge against those who wronged them during life. But they have also been known to attack people at random. As for the chances of the Striga being real, they are pretty much 0. Still, it's cool to think that at one time, the Slavic people of Europe believed there was a vampire-type owl creature prowling the shadows. Number 9. The Alabama White Thang. Believe it or not, there may be a mythical beast prowling through the thick dark forests of Alabama. It's known as the Alabama White Thang, and it could actually be real. This is because, since the early 1900s, people have repeatedly reported witnessing a large and tall creature with glowing red eyes and white skin. Others say it resembles a white lion standing on its hind legs. Only, rather than being a big hairy ape like Bigfoot, the creature more resembles a kangaroo with the head of a cat. Most sightings of the Alabama White Thang have come from within a crude triangle connecting Morgan, Jefferson, and Etowah counties. For this reason, it seems to be a very real possibility that it could exist. These sightings all appear to be relatively similar, with everyone agreeing that the creature is pale and certainly inhuman. The Alabama White Thang can allegedly move extremely quickly, and it sometimes sounds like a woman screaming. Other witnesses have claimed that the monster has an extremely foul odor that poisons the air around it. An interesting fact is that many people that believe they see Bigfoot have stated that before the sightings, they too smelled an awful odor. There has been no physical evidence taken of this freaky beast, but it very well could be lurking somewhere in Alabama. Number 8. The Fouke Monster. The Fouke Monster is also known as the Boggy Creek Monster, and it's essentially a swampy Bigfoot. This mythical creature allegedly lives in southern Arkansas, with its haunting range being from the small town of Fouke all the way to the Sulphur River bottoms. It has been seen by countless witnesses, including hunters and supposedly even one terrified police officer. In fact, the Boggy Creek Monster is so famous in Arkansas that there was a movie made about it. The creature even found worldwide fame when newspaper accounts went global back in the 1970s, but unfortunately the monster has never been photographed or captured. So far as its appearance, this cryptid is supposed to be 7 feet tall with a weight of between 300 and 500 pounds. Just like Bigfoot, it's covered in black hair and has an ape-like face. The only big difference here is that it lives in the swamps. The first sighting came in 1908, with the last alleged sighting being in 2014. The spooky mythical monster is often mentioned in television documentaries, including Monsters and Mysteries in America, Finding Bigfoot, Mysteries at the Museum, Monster Quest, Lost Tapes, and Weird Travels. Number 7. The Skunk Ape. There is no monster more mythical in the Sunshine State of Florida than the skunk ape. So many people believe in the existence of this strange monster that there is even an official skunk ape research headquarters near Naples in Florida. But what's the deal with this monster? Where did it come from, and what's it doing in Florida? Well, according to a report from CBS Miami, one of the researchers from the skunk ape headquarters claims that the beast is the southernmost relative of the Sasquatch. It's basically Bigfoot's cousin, and it lives in the Florida Everglades. In fact, this same guy insisted there could be at least between 7 to 9 skunk apes currently living in the Everglades. Of course, none of them have ever been properly documented, but people still believe they're living there. The stories of the skunk ape have been circulating for hundreds of years. Even some scientific experts, when asked whether the skunk ape is a myth or reality, simply respond by saying anything is possible in the Everglades. Because this place is so enormous, there could very well be a skunk ape that stands 8 feet tall and weighs roughly 450 pounds, covered in reddish black hair like an orangutan, running around the swamps. Number 6. The Menehune of Hawaii. Let's move away from the continent of North America and check out a mythical race of beings supposedly residing in beautiful Hawaii. They have allegedly been there even before the first settlers arrived from Polynesia. I'm of course talking about the Menehune. So far as the mythology goes, the Menehune were once a race of small and curious beings who had fashioned temples, roads, and so much more on the Hawaiian Islands before humans showed up. The first settlers of Hawaii even recalled there being these structures when they arrived. However, the Menehune only ever came out at night. To compare these ancient beings with something everyone knows, I would say they most closely resemble dwarves. This is because each creature apparently had a special craft that they were skilled in, kind of like how dwarves in mythology could fashion armor and dig for gold. Unfortunately, there have been no skeletal remains of a small race of people ever found on the magical Hawaiian Islands. But that doesn't disprove that they ever existed. In fact, many people believe that this tiny race of humans merely went underground. They could be hiding in the forests or underneath the streets right now as you're watching this video. Could they all have moved to Kauai, as it is the only island that has a vast and dense bush that people are not able to explore fully? Number 5. The Hopkinsville Goblins. Why are aliens often thought to be little green men? Well, this fascinating story might explain it. In the small town of Hopkinsville, Kentucky, a legend of little green men was born. According to History.com, the legend of the Hopkinsville Goblins began on the night of August 21st, 1955. It all started when the family of the Suttons showed up at the local police station with a horrifying story of being besieged by otherworldly beings. There were over a dozen witnesses who apparently saw tiny green goblin creatures about 3.5 feet tall, almost like humanoids but not quite, arrive in their backyard in a spaceship. While this is obviously a crazy story, it was taken seriously at the time. The police chief even told investigators later on that the women, children and men were all hysterical when they arrived at the police station. The police chief also noted that it was strange that the family didn't reach for guns and instead ran for help, meaning they must have been really terrified. Unfortunately, there has never been any concrete evidence that the aliens touched down on the Suttons' farmhouse and terrorized the family. But this is still one of the most credible sightings of extraterrestrial beings that has ever occurred in the United States, simply because of the number of witnesses. And who knows, maybe the Hopkinsville Goblins are still watching from the shadows of the Kentucky forest. Number 4. The Wendigo. Many people believe the Wendigo can still be found today in the remote forests of Canada and the northern United States. While the myth of the Wendigo likely originated with the Native American tribes as a cautionary tale to keep people from cannibalizing each other during particularly harsh winters, the legend still lives today as something that could be real. In fact, the Wendigo cemented its place in history in 1907, when a Canadian man wrote a story about a hunting party that ventured into the backwoods only to be met by the fearsome Wendigo. Between the legend and the story, tales of the Wendigo spread like wildfire through Canada. People became so afraid of this monster that there were even murders that took place by a man who believed he had the ability to detect and defeat the creatures. In Ontario, a man named Jack Fiddler and his brother ended up being arrested and imprisoned for killing a woman who they claimed would have otherwise turned into a Wendigo and terrorized society. So, the real question here is whether the Wendigo is just a myth or a very real being that feasts on the flesh of humans deep in the Canadian wilderness. Number 3. The Pennsylvania Squonk. In Pennsylvania, there is supposedly a monster of myth known as the Squonk. From what we know, tales of the Squonk first started being told in the north of Pennsylvania in the 19th century. The legend was first described professionally in the 1910 book by William Cox, Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods, with a few desert and mountain beasts. But what is the Squonk? It's supposed to be the loneliest monster in the world. It has webbing between its toes, only on its left feet, and it can only swim in circles, never back to shore, and it kind of looks like a pig. This creature is apparently always unhappy because of its misfitting skin that is covered in warts. The squonk allegedly cries constantly because of its ugly appearance and can often be tracked by a trail of tears. When it needs to escape a situation, sometimes it even dissolves in its tears. If you're looking to hunt the unsightly squonk, it's reportedly best to do it on a moonlit night. It's not really clear where the squonk came from, but depending on who you ask, it's still roaming through the hemlock trees in Pennsylvania. Luckily, it doesn't seem too dangerous. Number 2. Tahoe Tessie. Next up, we have a creature of myth that allegedly lives in Lake Tahoe. So many sightings of Tahoe Tessie have come to light in recent years that the town is now flooded with tourists trying to get a glimpse of the mythical legend. This is the North American equivalent of the infamous Loch Ness Monster, but with a diabolical twist. The frightful monster was allegedly made by human hands. Some people claim that a secret genetic company used even more secret technology to create a type of new dinosaur from fossilized DNA. Throughout various stages of her growth, Tessie demonstrated warning signs of abandonment issues due to the absence of a maternal figure. She became increasingly aggressive over time. 18 months after her creation, the creature broke free from her enclosure and escaped into the depths of the lake. It was not long after that local authorities were inundated with 911 calls regarding sightings and attacks of a Loch Ness-type monster. Since then, the government has been protecting the animal as part of a massive conspiracy. The government has been calling Tahoe Tessie a mythical creature rather than coming clean with the truth that it's really a genetic experiment. Of course, these claims are all unfounded. There is no evidence of a government cover-up at all, but that's just how the myth goes. Some people even say that the mysterious monster in Lake Tahoe is connected to at least 37 deaths, including an entire family of people who went missing in 2004. Number 1. The Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp. The final terrifying creature on the list for today is the Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp. There have been many theories about the Lizard Man, saying that it's a living dinosaur, or even an offshoot of evolution, in which a reptilian species evolved along the same path as early primates. Basically, many people believe there is a legitimate man lizard living in South Carolina, hidden in the forest. The first relatively legit sighting came in 1988 when a man named Davis stopped his car near the border of Scape Ore Swamp to change a blown-out tire. When he finished changing the tire, he heard a noise and turned around to see the Lizard Man running towards him. Davis managed to jump on the roof of his car, swing out of the way, then crawl into the driver's seat and hightail it out of there, but the experience stayed with him for life. Since 1988, there have been sightings all the way up to 2011. A radio station even offered an award of $1 million to anyone who could catch the creature alive, but unfortunately, the actual Lizard Man has never been physically documented. Number 10. The White Lion. There is nothing quite like seeing one of your favourite animals turned abnormally pale. Is your brain playing tricks on your eyes? Not quite. And for that matter, there's something magical about seeing the king of the jungle be a gorgeous shade of white. These massive felines are a genetic anomaly. They are the exact same as ordinary lions, except they have a difference in pigmentation. They can also only be found in one place on Earth. White lions can be seen in South Africa, specifically in the Timbavati region. The earliest record of a white lion being sighted in South Africa is from 1938. These majestic lions are even considered divine by many different African cultures. But what's fascinating is that the white lions are not actually albino. Their white colour comes from a recessive trait otherwise known as a genetic mutation called leucism. It's the same kind of genetic mutation that causes albinism, but less severe. White lions can be found anywhere from blonde to completely white, and this stunning coloration doesn't appear to have any impact on their survival in the wild. Unfortunately for the world, white lions were considered technically extinct from between 1992 and 2004. However, the Global White Lion Protection Trust achieved the unthinkable when they reintroduced white lions into their natural habitat in 2004, and since then the prides have been hunting and breeding successfully. But there are still complications, as unfortunately many white lions have been pillaged and sold to zoos or wildlife parks. The only good news about this is that hopefully they continue to breed in captivity as well as in the wild, and we can keep having white lions in the world for the rest of time. These truly are beautiful and magnificent animals. Number 9. Albino raccoon. You can find raccoons just about anywhere in North America, and they have an adorable bandit-type quality to them. But it's not quite as easy to spot an albino raccoon, for they are extremely rare. Their bleached-appearing counterparts are exceptionally freakish. Because of a genetic mutation, an albino raccoon loses all of its colouring. That includes the banded stripe across its eyes. The colour goes all the way from the tip of its nose to the tip of its tail, and this results in it not even looking remotely like a raccoon. You might not even realise it's a raccoon until the creature starts going through your garbage. It almost looks like a white rat. Supposedly, any raccoon has a 1 in 10,000 chance of being born with albinism. However, your chance of seeing one is actually 1 in 750,000. It's the exact same odds as being struck by lightning. That's because albino raccoons are easier to spot, which makes it tough to survive and blend in a world of bandits, and they typically don't live very long. Also, most people identify them as a possum because of their pale colouring. Albino raccoons are so rare that most don't even know they exist. Congratulations, now you do. Of course, an albino raccoon is still a raccoon. If you're ever to witness one of these pale thieves rooting through your trash cans, don't feed it, don't approach it, and definitely don't try to take a selfie with it. Relish the experience and then move along. Albino raccoons can still cause quite a bit of damage if you do get too close. Number 8. Albino squirrels. White squirrels can be found all over North America. However, it's unlikely that you'll ever spot an albino one. White squirrels are super rare, and albino squirrels are even more rare and look like mini unnatural monsters. And although they look similar, they're not the same. There are actually 2 types of white squirrels found throughout North America. There is the white squirrel and the albino squirrel. The albino squirrel is a genetically mutated grey squirrel, and you can tell the two apart because the albino squirrel will have demonic red eyes and will be plotting to murder you. Not really, but it's sort of hard to tell. On the other hand, the white squirrel is quite peaceful and will have normal black eyes. It's been estimated that only about 20 or 30% of white squirrels in North America are albinos. In order for this to happen, both the squirrel's parents must be carriers of the unique gene. But wait, there's more! There are even more white squirrels out in the world. In Thailand and some parts of East Asia, there is a subspecies of tree squirrel that has a white coat as well. It's known as Finlayson's squirrel, and it's pretty stinking cute. It has an extremely long tail and almost looks like a lemur. And here's another fun fact. The eastern fox squirrel can be white too, but it's caused by the condition leucism we mentioned earlier, which causes a decrease of certain pigments, causing the squirrel to be grey with white splotches. Number 7. Albino zebra. The albino zebra, also known as the blonde zebra, is by far one of the most fascinating wild animals in the world. A photographer recently captured some amazing photographs of one while on an expedition in Tanzania. While filming zebras near a watering hole, he spotted the very elusive white zebra, which comes with a golden mane and dusty pale stripes. This zebra was mingling with the rest of the herd in a completely normal way, letting the photographer know that it was accepted despite its contrasting appearance to the rest of its kind. According to National Geographic, which published the photographer's beautiful images, the white zebra that he spotted likely had partial albinism. However, albinism is incredibly rare in zebras. Researchers for a long time have held the belief that any zebra with albinism would have a harder time surviving, but that doesn't appear to be the case, and we're happy for it. Zebras use their stripes for more reasons than just camouflage. They also use their unique look for thermoregulation and to stop bugs from biting them. For this reason, an albino zebra would have a more difficult time deterring insects. This is because flies are more likely to land on a surface that is uniform rather than high contrast. Of course, the white zebra is so ridiculously rare that it hasn't been properly studied, and so scientists are still scrambling to figure out what it means and if we will see more of them in the future. Number 6. Albino axolotl. The axolotl is definitely one of the coolest creatures ever. Also known as the Mexican walking fish, it's a type of salamander, and like other salamanders, the axolotl is able to regrow its limbs if they get cut off. The species used to be found naturally in many lakes in Mexico, but are now considered critically endangered in the wild. However, axolotls have become wildly popular aquarium pets all throughout North America and the rest of the world. And while you typically see pictures of these strange salamanders being bright white, they actually have 5 different colour types. The white ones you see are all albinos. By breeding certain axolotls together, experts are able to create whichever colour variant they choose. The normal type of salamander found in the wild is going to be a brown colour with gold speckles. But since these critters have heated up as popular pets, you see more of them with genetic mutations. The albino version of the exotic salamander is bright white with red or clear eyes. Even more bewitching is that albino axolotls are often crossbred with leucistic axolotls, which are pale pink and have black eyes. The result is a strange white and pink animal that you can see in many exotic fish stores. Even more incredible is that axolotls are able to suddenly change their own colour to an extent to better camouflage themselves. Number 5. Albino hummingbird. Finding an albino hummingbird sitting outside your balcony is like finding a leprechaun in your basement. It is incredibly rare and very unlikely to happen. And even though albino hummingbirds are likely the last animal anyone ever thinks about having albinism, they really do exist. Albino hummingbirds have white feathers and pink, almost orange eyes. Like other albinos, they are unable to create any dark pigment at all. White hummingbirds function normally, just like other hummingbirds. And while spotting an albino is super rare, you still have a relatively good chance of spotting a leucistic hummingbird, which has black eyes and a black beak and white hair. Still, the difference between the two is pretty obvious. Albino hummingbirds have pink beaks and bright pink feet. Also, albino hummingbirds have less of a chance of surviving in the wild. This is because pure white feathers are weaker than those that have the pigment. This sometimes causes their wings to break during migration. Plus, pale white birds are obviously not very well camouflaged and make for easy targets. Number 4. Albino kangaroo. At a German zoo, an albino kangaroo was born just recently. And yes, she was born from an albino mother. While this is a very rare occurrence, what happened next is quite frankly shocking. Just weeks after her birth, the baby albino kangaroo went missing and authorities believe that she has been stolen. This is shocking for multiple reasons. First, how does a person steal an animal from a zoo without being caught? And second, why on earth would someone steal a kangaroo from a German zoo? There are so many disturbing questions here. According to the news report from The Independent, the kangaroo was last seen in her enclosure on a Wednesday morning and was absent when zookeepers went to close the enclosure that night. The zoo actually phoned in 2 hunters with dogs to try and track down the kangaroo, but have had no success. Also, the director of the zoo came forward to say that there was no evidence that the kangaroo was eaten by a predator. And we should hope not, it's a zoo. Animals are not supposed to be eating other animals inside of a zoo. As for how rare an albino kangaroo is, there's only one born out of roughly 100,000 animals. It's not a very good trait for a kangaroo to have, because the white fur makes them ridiculously vulnerable to ground predators in the wild. Number 3. Albino alligator. Everyone knows that alligator babies are adorable. When alligators are first born, they are perhaps some of the cutest baby critters in the world. Of course, they eventually grow into terrifying lizards that will eat you at the first opportunity. But still, the babies are quite precious. But if you thought normal baby alligators were cute, you need to take a look at the albinos. At a wildlife center in Florida, a clutch of baby alligators has just been born. These alligators are ridiculously good looking. They were born about 5 inches long and will be staying in protective care for several weeks to ensure their safety. Wild Florida, the sanctuary where they were born, is hoping to come up with some fun winter names for them. The mother and father alligators are also albinos, and they are named Snowflake and Blizzard. There are not very many albino alligators in the wild, and this might be one of the first places where the white beasts will be allowed to thrive and prosper. The team at Wild Florida is so dedicated that when the 26 eggs were found, they were swiftly placed into an incubator and kept safe for 81 days before hatching. Number 2. Snowflake the gorilla. If you've never heard of Snowflake the albino gorilla before, you may have been living under a rock. Snowflake was arguably the second most famous gorilla in the world. He lived for 40 years at the Barcelona Zoo before succumbing to skin cancer in 2003. However, it turns out that Snowflake didn't get his albino condition in a very normal way. New research has shown that Snowflake was the product of inbreeding. This gorilla was born into the wild, then captured in 1966 in Equatorial Guinea. He was also the only known white gorilla in the world. That made him quite a star during his lifetime. It also made him the target for a lot of science experiments and studies. Everyone wanted to know where Snowflake got his pink complexion and white fur. It's a genetic mutation that has never been found in gorillas before. But after Spanish researchers sequenced the gorilla's full genome, they revealed that Snowflake was actually the product of his uncle and his niece breeding. What's really strange about this is that inbreeding is not part of gorilla behavior. According to Live Science, the only reason for any gorilla species or subspecies to breed within the family is when there is no one else to mate with. The likely issue here is habitat loss, forcing gorillas to mate within the family to produce more offspring. The result in this case was an albino named Snowflake. Number 1. Migaloo the albino humpback whale. The last character in today's video is another very famous animal. Migaloo is considered to be the most famous humpback whale on Earth. The remarkable creature was first seen in 1991 off the coast of Australia by a group of volunteers who had been conducting a count of local whales. The first photograph of Migaloo was then taken using a telescope from quite some distance away. It wasn't until 1993 that the Pacific Whale Foundation finally encountered the notorious white whale once again off the coast of Australia. It was then that the whale was confirmed to be completely white. But it wasn't until DNA testing was done in 2011 by researchers at the Australian Marine Mammal Centre that Migaloo was confirmed to be a true albino. Coincidentally, 2011 was also the year a second white humpback whale was sighted. The whale appeared to be a calf, but it was not initially known whether the new white whale was the offspring of Migaloo or not. Even though all humpback whales are protected under Australian law, Migaloo and other whales that are at least 90% white have special management and extra protection. This means that no vessel can approach within 1,500 feet of the animal. It's a necessary rule to have in place, because people are lunatics and try to get too close to the animal, like the guy in 2003 who drove straight into Migaloo with his boat to get a better look. Number 10. Rabbit spider. The rabbit spider sounds like some kind of crazy hybrid experiment created by a mad scientist, and that's exactly why it's the first on our list today for the strangest insects and arachnids ever. This odd and terrifying arachnid has a black bunny head on its torso, 8 long freaky legs, and yes, it's 100% real. It was recently photographed by a nature scientist in the Amazon rainforest of Ecuador, and it's a seriously formidable beast. But just what exactly is this spider doing with a rabbit head on its back? Well, it's not actually a spider. It's properly known as a bunny harvestman, and it's a type of arachnid you may be familiar with, a species known as daddy longlegs. There are over 6,000 species of harvestmen across the planet. There are even fossil records that show they've been around for millions of years, way before dinosaurs ever roamed the Earth. This particular species was found in 1959. Scientists believe that the arachnid evolved to the unusual shape of its body as a defense mechanism. The bunny ears and bright yellow dots make it appear as though it's larger and meaner than it really is, which scares away predators. Unlike other species, they only have one pair of eyes. If you are a little freaked out by these arachnids, don't worry. The bunny harvestman is not dangerous to humans. Number 9. The assassin bug. I wonder what a bug with this name does. The assassin bug is not only a strange insect, it's also one of the most disturbing insects known to mankind. The assassin bug has a gruesome habit of covering itself in the corpses of other insects after it feasts upon their insides. It's like something out of a horror movie for bugs. The assassin bug lives in the forests of Malaysia. It's only about half an inch in size, and yet its ferocity is known all over the world. The sneaky assassin bug captures its victims and then injects them with a special enzyme to dissolve their innards. This makes it easier for the assassin bug to suck out their insides. It basically turns unfortunate victims into a juice box, which it then straps onto its back so that it looks more fearsome. The assassin bug literally harnesses the empty exoskeleton of whichever bug it just ate onto its body using a special sticky secretion. The result is that it walks around with a back full of corpses. Of course, the assassin bug doesn't just do this for fun. It's a defense mechanism. All the corpses stuck to its back work kind of like a suit of armor. Researchers from the School of Biological Sciences at the University of Canterbury concluded after an in-depth study that an assassin bug covered in corpses is 10 times less likely to be attacked by its main predator, the jumping spider. This is because spiders are naturally fearful of ants, as they have the ability to swarm and easily defeat any measly jumping spider. Number 8. The devil's flower mantis. Out of all the insects creeping and crawling around the planet, the mantis is by far one of the most fearsome out there. There's nothing more horrifying than watching a mantis eat another insect alive. These are savage predators most commonly found in Africa. The devil's flower mantis is one of the strangest and also one of the most famous species of mantis ever found. It's a huge insect which can grow to be 4 to 5 inches in length and looks a lot like a pile of leaves. But the devil's flower mantis isn't born with its leafy brown colouring. They are actually born black, which scientists believe is supposed to mimic ants so that predators don't try to eat them. And while there are other mantises out there that prey on a wide variety of insects, the devil's flower mantis only consumes flies. It can of course eat other insects, but it doesn't want to. Young nymphs eat fruit flies while adult mantises eat a collection of bottle flies and moths. In the wild, the devil's flower mantis will sit completely still in a safe location and spend its entire day snatching unsuspecting flies when they get too close. Hey, real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome! Thanks for watching. Give this video a like and hit that subscribe button for more videos like these. Number 7. Cuckoo bee. The cuckoo bee is by far the funkiest little bee on Earth. It has evolved quite independently from other bee species. What's really fascinating about this bee is what it does in order to survive. It's a parasitic creature, meaning it uses another animal to help itself thrive. In this case, the cuckoo bee lays its eggs inside of another bee's nest. The cuckoo bees then hatch earlier than the other bees, at which point they eat all the eggs of the bees that actually live in the nest. Savages! The cuckoo bee larvae have larger mandibles than the other bee larvae, allowing them to easily destroy all the other larvae before they even have a chance to live. It's a pretty nasty strategy, but one that has worked out well for the cuckoo bee. The cuckoo bee also looks different from others. They don't have a lot of hair, making them look a bit more like wasps. Also, since they don't actually need to feed their young, they don't collect pollen. They hang out on flowers drinking the nectar, but only so they have enough energy to ravage the nests of normal bees. If they do any pollination, it's totally by accident. Number 6. Pipevine swallowtail caterpillar. There is an insane amount of caterpillars on Earth, but by far one of the strangest is the California pipevine swallowtail. It's a fascinating creature for one main reason: they look extremely cool. The pipevine swallowtail caterpillar grows to be extremely dark, with big orange spikes all over its body. Spikes! These caterpillars look a lot more like angry centipedes than fluffy caterpillars. They are also toxic. According to the United States National Park Service, the pipevine swallowtail primarily feeds on the shoots of the California pipevine, and in doing so ingests the plant's chemicals. This makes the caterpillar toxic to eat, though it's unlikely poisonous enough to kill a human. And why would a human be eating caterpillars anyway? And like all caterpillars, the pipevine swallowtail eventually transforms into a gorgeous butterfly. In butterfly form, the pipevine swallowtail still has its black and orange colouring, except that now it has remarkably glossy wings and flies around drinking nectar. Number 5. The scorpion-tailed spider. If you're the kind of person who is easily freaked out by scorpions and spiders, the last little creature you ever want to meet in the wild is the scorpion-tailed spider. This strange monster is exactly what it sounds like. It's a spider equipped with the tail of a scorpion. It's a type of orb weaver spider that was first found in 1863, primarily distributed across East Asia. They aren't very long, only growing to be about 1 inch. However, the female spider is a bit longer and comes equipped with a scorpion tail, which they use when threatened to ward off predators. The tail doesn't actually sting, and they aren't actually related to scorpions, but they certainly look frightening enough. The proper name for this spider is the Arachnura. They spend most of their time sitting in the very centers of their webs, all day and all night. They are fairly well protected from birds because they have evolved to look like pieces of plant debris when hiding in their web in plain sight. In fact, you probably wouldn't even recognize one if you walked by its web in the wild, as you would just think that a leaf had gotten stuck in the spider's web. And even though the Arachnura looks horrifying, it's actually not dangerous to humans. The worst that can happen from a bite is a bit of pain and swelling. Number 4. Brazilian treehopper. The Brazilian treehopper isn't a scary insect by any means, but it is definitely a weird one. According to Science Focus, the Brazilian treehopper is only the size of a pea and dwells in the rainforest of South America. The really fascinating thing about the treehopper is its head. It has 2 pairs of balls jutting out from what almost looks like a helicopter propeller on the top of its head. Scientists are still not sure what the 2 pairs of balls are used for, but they believe it could be something like a peacock's tail, where males use it to show off how impressive they are to females. But this might not be the case, considering both males and females have sets of balls on their heads. A secondary explanation for the Brazilian treehopper's strange headdress is that it could be a sort of distraction for predators, causing them to aim at the balls over the insect's head when attacking, which would allow the Brazilian treehopper to run away. But wait for it, because the third theory is the most bonkers. Deep in the jungles of the Amazon, there is a type of parasitic fungus that invades the bodies of ants and then bursts out of them, creating massive globs of fungus on the heads of the deceased insect. Some scientists say that the Brazilian treehopper evolved to mimic the parasitic fungus. That way, any smart predator would stay away from the treehopper and the balls on its head instead of risking infection. Wait a second, does it really hop from tree to tree? Not exactly, but they can leap fairly long distances for arachnids. Number 3. Spitting spiders. Spiders are scary enough with their fangs, their venom, their webs, and their overabundance of eyes and legs. They have quick reflexes, they're creepy to look at, and they don't have many fans. So why do spitting spiders even exist? Unfortunately, science doesn't have an answer to this question. What science does know is that spitting spiders are a unique species of arachnid that have the ability to fire sticky nets of silk from a distance just like Spider-Man. This spider is able to shoot a bomb of silk about 90 feet per second, pinning down prey from a distance. Rather than sitting in a nest waiting for an insect to come to them, the spitting spider takes a more aggressive approach. It goes out and hunts. They will hide out during the day, but at night turn into a beasts of prey. It comes equipped with what can only be described as a net gun, capturing its victims from the shadows without them ever knowing it was there. Don't fret, they are harmless to humans. There are also about 239 species of spitting spider, and they are found throughout every part of the globe. Number 2. Spiny flower mantis. The devil's flower mantis is definitely pretty cool, but the spiny flower mantis is even cooler. It's found throughout southern and eastern Africa. This little bug only measures up to 2 inches. Plus, they are wildly unique. Not only do they look absolutely fabulous with their colourful designs and bright pink eyes, but they are also savage cannibals. The spiny flower mantis usually prefers to sit in the same spot and snatch pollinating insects to eat as they fly. They have also been known to cannibalize each other. Believe it or not, the males are the ones who have the most to be afraid of. Scientists have discovered that the spiny flower mantis female will often eat the male directly after mating, and sometimes even during. Right after the male connects his abdomen to the female's abdomen to mate, she'll turn around and start to eat him. Number 1. The disco spider. The disco spider sounds kind of like a really horrible dance club that went out of business, but it's actually a real arachnid. The spider was recently photographed in Singapore, and people are going crazy over its unique appearance. Right off the bat, the disco spider has a massive disco ball on its abdomen, hence the name. Its body looks like it's made up of tiny little mirrors, which might seem strange as a defense mechanism since predators will be able to easily spot it. However, it's actually a clever disguise. When predators try to eat the disco spider, all of the light reflecting off its disco ball body confuses whoever is trying to eat them. The shimmering spots will scatter light just like a disco ball, throwing any predators into a confused frenzy. This will typically allow the spider to get away. Number 10. Bengal slow loris. The Bengal slow loris is the largest of all the slow loris animals. This nocturnal creature has a round head, small ears, and eyes that are simply adorable. How could you ever say no to such a sweet-looking creature? Slow lorises live in the trees, they eat mainly fruit and insects, and they are extremely fuzzy. The slow loris is also one of the least studied primates in Asia. I know it kind of looks like a lemur, but it's actually not. And while you may want to cuddle up with this incredibly cute tree dweller, you may want to think again. Cute, but deadly. The Bengal slow loris is just as dangerous as every other species of slow loris. This animal produces a volatile and toxic substance from glands on the insides of its elbows. The slow loris can then lick the substance off the inside of its elbows, which then turns its saliva poisonous. When it bites with poison in its mouth, the slow loris can kill with the toxicity. This is definitely not the kind of animal you want hanging around the house. Nobody wants a pet with poison elbows. Number 9. Otters. Okay, come on. Fluffy kittens and sweet little puppies are definitely some of the cutest animals on the planet. But have you ever seen a little otter holding hands or rubbing cheeks? They slide down hills, wrestle each other, and do all sorts of cute otter things. They are simply adorable. It's easy to see why this animal wins our hearts with its good looks and playfulness. But you might not want to try cuddling with this animal. Don't let the cute memes of otters circulating the internet fool you. They are wild and dangerous animals, and can easily inflict horrors on each other and other wildlife. Otters can be found on almost every continent, and there are 13 different species. And these mean facts you're about to get hit with apply to them all. Otters need to eat about a quarter of their body weight daily in order to stay warm, and they will do just about anything to get food, including threatening their own family. Male otters have been observed stealing the babies of the females and holding them underwater till the female brings them food. They will also violently steal food from each other. There are multiple documented cases of otters lashing out aggressively. In New York at the Bronx Zoo, a monkey sat next to a pond filled with otters. There is a video of the innocent little monkey falling into the water and was then getting attacked by the otters. Another incident at a zoo in England reported a tamarin escaped its enclosure, fell into the otters exhibit, and then was eaten by not-so-innocent otters. The giant otter of the Amazon has an average weight of 75 pounds and can be more than 6 feet. They have a terrible reputation of capsizing canoes. Otters are the perfect example of cute, but dangerous. Number 8. Cows. Prepare to be shocked. Many of us see cows on a regular basis. If you live in the country, you'll probably see cows all the time on your daily commute. And while cows are cute and innocent, Often lounging around all day in the field and not bothering anybody, this is actually a ruse. Believe it or not, cows can kill. Killer cows! Yes, I know! Here's the story. The best example of this is a recent story reported by the BBC in which a family was attacked by cows while walking in the United Kingdom. A man named Mark had been walking with his 82-year-old mother and some friends when they were ambushed by cows in Cumbria. So far as the story goes, the group saw the cows drinking from a nearby stream and the walkers had to cross over the stream. They really didn't think anything of it. They started walking, then the cows turned around and attacked their dog. It became an absolute frenzy. The dog was trampled to death by the cows, and then the cows went after the man's senior mother, knocking her to the ground. She ended up suffering a broken arm from the attack. At the end, everyone got away alive except for the dog, as luckily some of the walkers fought back against the cows with their walking sticks. Mark said he supported farmers, but believes there should be a law ordering them to put up signs for nursing cattle. Number 7. Prairie dogs. Let's take a look at prairie dogs, which aren't actually canines or related to dogs at all. These tiny little animals are pretty adorable looking, and they are absolutely no harm to humans, but they are indeed dangerous to other animals. In fact, a new study has shown that the white-tailed prairie dog, which live mostly in Utah, Colorado, and Wyoming, are killing machines. These disgruntled herbivores have been caught red-handed murdering squirrels for apparently no reason. The prairie dogs have been caught biting squirrels, shaking them to death, and then just leaving their dead bodies in the dirt. They seem to be doing this unprovoked, for no reason, but probably with a lot of malice. A researcher and his team at the Arapahoe National Wildlife Refuge have so far documented prairie dogs killing over 100 ground squirrels in the last 5 years. Not only that, but there are 62 suspected killings that prairie dogs were likely involved in. In the time studying this phenomenon, the researchers recorded at least 43 adult prairie dogs, both male and female, participating in the act of murder. In one particularly violent event, researchers witnessed a single prairie dog dig 7 squirrel babies out of different dens and killed them unprovoked for no reason. If that's not a dangerous animal, I don't know what is. Number 6. Panda bear. Pandas are a lot of people's favourite animals. It's pretty easy to see why. With their distinctive white coat and black around their eyes, legs and shoulders, they're extremely cute. They have a reputation of being harmless with a charming habit of sneezing. They spend most of their time sleeping or eating bamboo. While it's undeniable that pandas are striking animals, the reality is those teeth aren't just for crunching bamboo. They will use them for protection against predators like snow leopards and jackals. They're pretty docile around humans, but if provoked, they can become extremely aggressive, and it would undoubtedly be a mistake to get too close to one in the wild. Pandas are used to being adored by humans when in captivity, but they can be extremely dangerous. In 2006, a drunk and not-so-bright 28-year-old man named Zhang climbed into the panda enclosure at Beijing Zoo to pet the bear. He wanted to show off to his companion, but all he had to show for his brandish display of stupidity was a right calf savaged beyond recognition. Oh, and the panda's bite force is among the highest. Number 5. Dolphins. Everyone loves dolphins. They're majestic creatures that are all fun and games and cute to swim with on vacation in Mexico. They are highly social and incredibly clever, and usually seen as friendly animals that love to play and jump through the waves near passing boats. But they also have an evil streak most don't know about until you find out they are secret murderers. Scientists followed a bloody trail of evidence that proves that dolphins aren't exactly the happy creatures humans think they are. Growing evidence shows that 12 foot are killing fellow mammals with their sharp teeth and using their beaks as clubs to bludgeon porpoises by the hundreds. They do this just for the fun of it. They've even been seen murdering their young. Off the coast of Scotland, a researcher watched in disbelief for an hour as an adult dolphin picked up a baby in its mouth and banged it against the water over and over until it sank from view below the water. If they are capable of doing something so horrifying to their own young, imagine what they could do to a human. Experts believe that many tourist attractions will continue until a major incident occurs. Number 4. Honey badger. The honey badger is one of the toughest and most dangerous animals in the animal kingdom. It's also ridiculously adorable. It looks like an evil skunk. Even just looking at the honey badger's face, you can tell it's up to something bad. In terms of being attacked by a honey badger, don't worry too much, it's probably not going to happen. But for any other animal, the honey badger is a menace. These things are highly resistant to the venom from snakes and scorpions. They have a tail that measures 9 inches and can be used as a weapon. They also have a unique 2-tone coat that covers their skin and helps them to survive. Plus, the honey badger can endure the bites from just about anything. And they also bite back. Honey badgers can dig, they can fight, and they have pretty much no fear at all. In the Guinness Book of World Records, the honey badger has the title of world's most fearless creature. What other animal will eat poisonous insects, venomous snakes, and even stand up to lions, leopards, and hyenas? They're sort of lazy animals that don't really find the energy to make a home for themselves, but have no problem making themselves comfortable in another creature's residence. It's no wonder that honey badgers have been the subject of memes and internet fame related to their notorious ill-tempered nature. They don't care. They will fight anyone and everyone. Number 3. Hippopotamus. Hippos are incredibly cute animals that resemble floating potatoes. Oftentimes you just see their cute little faces sticking out of the water. But don't get it twisted. It doesn't matter how cute they appear to be, they are one of the deadliest animals on land and in water. According to reports, some say they are actually the most dangerous in Africa, more so than lions, snakes, and hyenas. They are so aggressive, even crocodiles are afraid of them. They average 3,500 to 4,500 pounds, they probably weigh more than your car, and they can be heavier than that. It's estimated they kill around 3,000 people every year. One of the worst cases recorded in the history of hippos ambushing humans was in 2014. 12 children and an adult perished when a hippopotamus overturned a boat near Niger's capital, Niamey. Hippos are the tank of the animal kingdom, and their strength should never be underestimated. In 2014, a single giant hippo took on a pride of lions when they made the mistake of trying to have the hippo for dinner. They tend to yawn a lot, which most people believe it means the hippo is relaxed and content. But according to a conservation ecologist, Johan Eckstein, who has studied hippos for 30 years in South Africa, this actually means they are agitated and probably about to strike, especially if you hear them laughing. So yes, hippos are undeniably adorable looking, but I highly suggest not getting too close. Number 2. Owls. Owls are insanely loved creatures. You can't even walk into a store without finding some kind of piece of furniture or decoration with an owl on it, whether it's a clock, a throw pillow, or even just a little statue. And while some people are wildly obsessed with owls, everyone should know that these cute birds are actually violent predators that are dangerous to humans. Owls have actually been known to attack people, seemingly unprovoked. It's highly unlikely you would ever die from being attacked by an owl, but it definitely happens. In one story reported by the San Juan Journal, a man was minding his own business while he jogged up a hill in his residential neighborhood when out of the darkness an owl swooped. He felt razor-sharp knives against his head, his hat was ripped away, and then it was all over in the sound of feathers. This particular man did not die, and he wasn't gravely injured, but the fact that he was attacked randomly by a malevolent owl just goes to show that these unique and attractive birds can cause harm, and you should watch out. Also, in the docuseries The Staircase, a man accused of murdering his wife by pushing her down the stairs, Michael Peterson, pled that it wasn't him. He claims it was an owl that actually got through an open door in the house, which sat in a heavily wooded area, swooped down upon her and knocked her down the stairs. I don't know about that, but it's definitely suspect. Number 1. Horse. Forget all about snakes and spiders. The most dangerous animal in Australia is actually the horse. According to a new study by the Melbourne University, researchers have discovered that more Australians have been killed by horses in the last few years than by any of the venomous creatures in the country. Between 2000 and 2013, snake bites killed 27 people, ticks and ants killed 5 people, box jellyfish killed 3 people, spiders actually killed 0 people, but a whopping 74 Australians were trampled to death by a horse. How's that for statistics? The horse, one of the most beautiful and beloved animals of all time, except for maybe dogs, is actually a bloodthirsty beast trampling Australians to death. No one would have expected that, especially in a country as full of dangerous wildlife as Australia. Are any of these dangerous animals a surprise to you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and be sure to come back soon for more fun videos. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.